They fly thousands of kilometers to a place where winters are far more benign. Every year, they risk their lives by crossing seas and continents to escape the lands where life will be engulfed in ice and snow. Here, at the southern tip of Europe, they find an excellent refuge for themselves and their offspring, where they can spend the most ruthless season amidst wildlife. These landscapes become their winter paradise, a home where they can wait for a signal from nature to return to their homeland and the spring. The signs are all around. The sounds and colours are giving clear warning. In the northernmost part of Scandinavia, where forests and lakes intertwine with the Arctic tundra, the increasingly chilly wind rocks the branches of trees full of ripe fruits. Here, so close to the Arctic, the brief reign of autumn will soon be brought to an end by the almighty winter. This pair of Arctic foxes is traversing the tundra in an anxious search for more food to give them strength for what lies ahead. Their fur also gets ready as it turns into a renewed and thick white coat that will help them survive the frigid temperatures. It's all they can do in the face of this threat, while those who do have a chance to escape are hovering over the snow-capped mountains, even though their escape involves a long journey which is as exhausting as it is dangerous. With the end of summer, the common cranes slowly begin to gather in groups. It's the first sign of the great journey that awaits them. They are the largest birds of the family Grudae and come from further north, where the pairs have normally bred 1 or 2 chicks in isolation during spring and summer. The mute swans and the whooper swans too can sense the signals of the imminent migration, although their wintering destination will be very different from those of the cranes. Whooper swans, for example, will set out for the British Isles, Europe's Atlantic coast, and some coastal areas north of the Mediterranean. They have raised their chicks in the same places where the common cranes have bred theirs, firmly marking their territory. But now, as the great adventure is approaching, they have put their reclusive behaviour aside to become more sociable, gathering in large flocks where they continue taking care of their little ones, who will soon encounter their first crucial test of their young lives. The brown colour of its head represents the young age of this crane. It has followed its parents to the southern latitudes where they look for food on harvested cropland. Surrounded by stubble, the cranes and swans endeavour to eat everything they can, from seeds and plants to insects and other small animals. Adults guide, supervise and help their children during this important task. There is no doubt that they will need all the fat they can store to survive what lies ahead. As autumn progresses, the flocks become larger. Every morning they turn into magnificent winged armies that invade the meadows and farmland of the southern Scandinavia, devouring everything that serves as food. Until one day it finally happens. Perhaps it is due to the changes in sunlight, or the duration of days, or some other signs of nature, or maybe all of these simultaneously. We don't know for sure. But the fact is that one fine morning, after spending a few hours feeding, these large birds take flight. And this time they do not return. This marks the beginning of the great migratory journey to their wintering regions. Common cranes get into their characteristic V formation after gaining altitude by using thermal columns to boost their flight. They will need all the help they can get to meet the enormous challenge they have set themselves, crossing a continent from one end to another. For many generations, they've adhered to the same route that will take them days, even weeks, to complete. Just like the route they follow, the cranes repeat the series of fixed locations where they can rest and regain strength, as did their ancestors before them. The last of these stopover sites for the flocks going south and west of the Iberian Peninsula is at the Gallocanta Lake. After getting past the Great Barrier of the Pyrenees mountain range, they've found everything they need. Wetlands where they can rest safely, along with a steppe land and a vast expanse of cultivated land to feed on for several days. Reaching all the way here is quite a feat for this juvenile crane. This has been possible after surviving thousands of obstacles and dangers it has had to endure with hardly any experience in life, relying solely on its strength, determination and the support of its parents. The largest saline wetland of the Iberian Peninsula, which is also the best preserved in entire Western Europe, overflows these days with hundreds of thousands of common cranes who have come to join over 200 species of birds. Some live here permanently, while some are here for wintering or making a stopover before their final wintering site, just like the cranes. The grey lag geese have finally arrived at their destination. Like cranes, they breed in northern Europe and migrate in autumn to spend the winter in marshes near the Guadalquivir River, where the Donyana National Park is located. However, climate change is causing these birds to adjust their wintering habits. Now many of them do not travel to the southern Iberian Peninsula. They decide to stay in different parts of Central Europe. Here they find their favourite food in abundance, plants that grow in marshes and shallow water areas, especially the lakeshore bulrush and nutgrass, of which they devour the tubers. They also have sand and tiny stones around, which they ingest for grinding the food with their gizzard. This wild relative of the domestic goose is very sociable and friendly. They do everything in groups, and a constant squawking chatter keeps them in touch, so that they can communicate any kind of danger or a need to change the foraging area. Moreover, the families, composed of pairs that usually mate for life, and their children stay together during the migration as well as the winter. Other inhabitants of these wetlands are the greater flamingos. However, unlike grey-lag geese and common cranes, these flamingos are not long-distance migrants. They may rather be considered as nomads, who spend their lives travelling between wetlands of the southern Iberian Peninsula and northern Africa in search of adequate water and food, and a quiet place where they're going to breed. This is because these elegant birds are extremely sensitive to violent and sudden noises, to which their immediate reaction is fleeing and leaving their eggs to their fate in the nest itself. In the marsh community, there are no conflicts between the geese and flamingos for food. Flamingos feed exclusively on microorganisms that inhabit the shallow water. Algae, small mollusks, crustaceans, insects, tiny fish and larvae are part of their menu. To capture those, they stir up the mud with their webbed feet. They also have a very sensitive tongue and a bill that is specially adapted to filter the water. The beta-carotene present in the algae they eat gives their feathers a distinct pink or reddish colour, a colour that seems to set fire to the sky when the flocks take flight in search of a new place to feed or to rest. Whatever they do, the flamingos do it together. They're sociable to the point of making it very difficult to spot the flamingo alone. Near the marshes, a vast expanse of holm oaks and cork oaks emerges with the first light of the chilly dawn. A layer of frost has covered the dehesas, where common cranes have come to winter. They had been running away from ice and snow, but the cold has reached here too, although not as ferocious as it is in the far north. Winter is like a nocturnal architect of delicate structures that give the plants a new look when they are illuminated by the first lights of dawn, winter's biggest enemy. If the cranes risk their lives by embarking on a long and dangerous journey, it is because even though the ice owns the night here, its dominance is ephemeral. Every day it is defeated by the power of the sun. winter birds arrive in the dehesas, pastureland ecosystems found exclusively in Europe. It's a man-made forest that covers a vast expanse of the southwestern Spain and Portugal. Centuries of hard work of several generations of farmers and ranchers, together with nature, has turned it into an excellent ecosystem of enhanced productivity and environmental balance, of coexistence between the human being, the forest that it has helped to create, and the wildlife that it sustains. More than half of Eurasia's common cranes spend their winters in the Iberian dehesas. Besides a more agreeable climate, this unique environment offers an abundance of food, especially the fruit of holm oaks, the true pillars that support this entire ecosystem. Acorns are a gift from heaven. Apart from being abundant and large in size, they're a great source of nutrients, which makes them an excellent food for all the inhabitants of this natural environment. Every morning, a wide variety of diners, such as cranes, Asia-winged magpies, and common wood pigeons, gather round the foot of holm oak trees. Everyone finds a seat at the autumn banquet. Even those who come with an insatiable appetite. It's the Montanera season, open-air feeding period for the Iberian pigs. A happy time where they graze freely in the pastures, stuffing themselves with acorns, which they find delicious. A pig can consume about 10 kilos of acorn a day, although it does not project other delicacies that appear under its snout, from grass to small invertebrates. Cranes, too, have a strong liking for acorns. Always gathered in large groups, sometimes in hundreds, they spend the day feeding on these and other foods that this domesticated forest has to offer them. Families stay together just the way they have throughout the migratory journey. Parents keep an eye on their children at all times. Another advantage of this location during winter is that there are practically no large predators around to threaten them. Nevertheless, the parents never let their guard down. After surviving the formidable adventure of crossing a continent, the juvenile cranes find themselves in a new world that is yet to be explored. Everything must seem unfamiliar to them. After all, this environment is nothing like the one in which they took their first steps. But they have the constant attention of their parents to help them unravel all the secrets. The adults are showing their children everything that is edible here, just as they learned from their parents. For example, cranes are among the few animals that remove the shell from the acorns with their perfect pecks before consuming them, It's an acquired skill, since there are no acorns in their breeding habitat. The adults, therefore, must teach their children how to do it. Apart from eating, another task that keeps common cranes busy during the winter is taking care of their attire. With loving care, they nibble, smooth out and rearrange their feathers, which they shed every 2 years. They also protect them with an oily substance produced by their preen gland, located just above the tail. While the cranes get lost amid the home oaks looking for new places to eat, everyone in the lakes and swamps devises their own strategy to satisfy their hunger. Eurasian spoonbills, for example, work as a team to pursue fish relentlessly. The glossy ibis, on the other hand, prefers to work alone as it looks for its prey on the muddy shores. With its curved bill, it feeds on insects, small amphibians and fish. Its presence in these marshes of the Guadalquivir is excellent news for biodiversity. The only ibis that appears naturally in Europe has recently returned to settle here and reproduce. Black-winged stilts and the common snipes catch their food with swift, flawless pecks. Although some members of both species live here permanently, most black-winged stilts prefer to winter in Africa. On the other hand, the majority of common snipes fly to these marshes from other parts of Europe to spend the coldest season of the year. As the day progresses, the wetlands are crowded with a multitude of other winter birds. In apparent good neighbourliness, they share the abundance offered by this winter paradise they have resorted to, after fleeing from the jaws of ice and snow that at this very moment are mercilessly devouring their breeding territories. Their being here is the best demonstration for why the Donyana Park has been declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Not surprisingly, it's considered the largest ecological reserve in all of Europe. Its location on the border between two continents and proximity to the point where the Mediterranean Sea meets the Atlantic Ocean makes Donyana an exceptional place for a wide variety of birds. They fly all the way here from different parts of Europe and Africa for wintering or, like the sanderlings, use it as a stopover during their migratory journey to a destination that is further away. With the first light of dawn, the beaches get populated once again with a multitude of birds that join the sanderlings, willing to eat whatever the sea has deposited on the shore during the night. But they are not alone. They see how some unknown beings are fearlessly challenging the power of the waves to catch the mollusks hiding in the sand. Everyone is busy with their own task in this game of confronting the waves. The small sanderlings dodge the force of waves that are bringing them their favourite food. Crustaceans, mollusks, marine worms and the remains of fish or jellyfish are the gifts from the sea that they tirelessly seek on this imprecise border that the tides are drawing. They'd better recover all the energy they can, as they still have a long and unpredictable journey ahead. They've flown here from their breeding habitats near the Arctic Circle, but their destination is further south, in the centre of Africa. Low tide has provided some respite to the anxious sandlings. They no longer have to worry about a treacherous wave that will catch them by surprise. As the water retreats, they are left with an immense space full of succulent goodies which they will not allow to escape. Although for some, nothing seems enough when it comes to eating. Another day is setting off for sunset at the wintering site of common cranes. It's time for them to rest. Like with all their activities now, they form large flocks to fly back to their usual roosts. They take the same route that they used for getting out to the feeding sites in the morning. Some utilized the last lights to continue eating in the adjacent fields. When the night is about to fall, they start entering the water. They choose wetlands for resting, such as lakes, irrigation ponds, marshes, rivers, or the banks of swamps. Distancing from the banks and staying together is their strategy to prevent an attack by potential predators, which in this case can be a young fox, a golden eagle, a wild boar, or a dog. On the nights of a full moon, their bedtime can be delayed considerably. Many of them take advantage of the brightness of our satellite to continue eating a little longer. It is therefore not unusual to see flocks of cranes in the middle of the night as they finally fly back to their roost. Night vision cameras allow us to experience something truly extraordinary, spying on cranes while they rest in the dark. Cocooned in serenity amidst the group and the water in which they have taken refuge, the cranes are always on their feet as they alternate short periods of sleep with those of staying awake and stretching their muscles to fight the intense cold of this winter night. The dawn is here at last, although the timid rays of the morning sun fail to offset the dominating cold. A chilly fog has surrounded the roost, and the cranes, who are now initiating short flights or fluttering on the ground to activate their muscles, in the damp atmosphere. As the morning progresses, small groups of cranes decide to fly over to the feeding areas. Some of those who leave the roost do so by folding their legs once in the air. This is to prevent the water around their legs from freezing. Cranes of higher hierarchical rank, who also tend to be in better physical condition, often delay their departure. When they finally do, they will follow the path that their group members have taken and join them in the feeding areas they have found. The roost of great cormorants is wrapped in an even denser fog. But it's no problem at all for these expert fishers. They will not have to fly very far, as their food awaits them at the foot of the tree where they rested during the night. Short wings, long and powerful neck and bill, muscular body and great diving skills. The evolution has turned the cormorants into excellent fish catchers. This is being demonstrated by two unfortunate species invading this ecosystem, pike perchers and catfishers. Great cormorants were once winter birds that flew here to spend the winter, but it's been a while since they made it their permanent habitat and have been taking advantage of the large water bodies full of life that abound in this natural environment. Although cormorants share the fishing area, they are not the ones to work as a team. Quite the contrary. These birds are capable of consuming fish equivalent to their body weight per day and would never hesitate to take advantage of someone else's efforts. The great egret is an increasingly abundant species during the Iberian winter. This slender bird uses composure as its best weapon to capture its prey underwater. Spearing them with its sharp bill like a living harpoon. With utmost stealth, it patiently stalks its next victim. But fishing is an art, not a science, even for someone who is naturally gifted to fish. A flock of northern lapwings is flying over the lake. These are one of the first winter birds to get here, and their arrival in these parts is considered by the locals as a harbinger of winter. This is why they call them ave frias, which translates to birds of the cold. Northern lapwings have brought on their wings the cold weather that has now seized these landscapes. They have arrived from Central and Western Europe, where their breeding habitats are located. Here they find plenty of water in which to bathe and rest, as well as the invertebrates to feed on. Close to where the northern lapwings are taking a bath, a large number of cranes are facing the dilemma of leaving their roost or waiting for the fog to dissipate. Winter days are short, and so the stragglers are losing the precious time that the braver ones must already be utilizing to fill their bellies. Whether they are among those who decided to leave or the ones who are still waiting, the families never split up. Parents and children stay together in the roost as well as in the feeding areas. The young ones learn that the adults protect and teach them while the sun abates the winter days. This noisy crowd must certainly draw a lot of attention, especially of someone on an empty stomach. But such an open space and the multitude of eyes tirelessly keeping watch make it almost impossible for a predator, however clever it may be, to even get close enough to a distracted juvenile crane. The fox will obviously have to find another place to calm his grumbling stomach. With the sun triumphing above the horizon, the last cranes finally leave the roost. Like them, hundreds of thousands of birds are soaring through the winter skies of the southwestern Iberian Peninsula, confident that their wooded expanse will continue to provide them with food, that their winter paradise, where they have arrived from so far away, will continue to take care of them. It certainly does so. When the abundance of acorns has become merely a memory, the dehesa continues to offer several places where its guests can eat. The cranes are now roaming around the croplands in search of seeds, sprouts, and even small invertebrates. Harvested farmlands that have already borne fruits for the farmers are now providing for the natural life as a perfect example of what this extraordinary ecosystem is, a space of continuous and fruitful coexistence between human activity and nature. Extreme intensive agriculture and the effects of climate change, with more severe droughts and proliferation of diseases decimating the home oaks that sustain it, are threatening the future of this environment of great importance for the common crane and many other animal and plant species. Fighting for its conservation is fighting for the survival of unique biodiversity of Europe. What common cranes never do while feeding in the agricultural fields is let their guard down. Adults ensure that nothing threatens their children, be it a predator or another crane willing to steal their food. Everyone watches out for the safety of the group, raising the alarm in case of any danger they detect. Such an enormous, alert and well-trained security team guarantees the protection of not just the cranes themselves, but of all those who are feeding nearby, such as these collared doves. The flamingos that inhabit the Fuente de Piedra lagoon are also thriving in a magnificent environment. Not surprisingly, this Andalusian wetland is the most remarkable habitat among the western Mediterranean wetlands. It houses the largest colony of flamingos on the Iberian Peninsula, which is also the second most important in Europe after the one occupying the Camargue region in France. A colony that will soon welcome its new members. Winter is now in its final stage. The days are getting longer and the temperatures more benign. Everything in the natural world appears to be announcing the imminence of spring, including the behavior of the flamingos. For them, this is the time of love. Like everything else in their world, pairs are forming within the colony they belong to. The males approach with a sophisticated ritual of displays that does not always give the desired results to the excited suitor. In which case, he will try it with other females until he is finally accepted and they can complete the mating process. The flocks of cranes too are responding to the pressing need for reproduction. The young ones now seem capable of living on their own and the families are splitting up. At this point, the parents engage in a peculiar and interesting ritual that involves dancing and singing. Since they mate for life, the ultimate goal of these displays is to strengthen their bond, which will culminate far away from here, at the other end of the continent, where they will fly shortly to breed a new generation of cranes. But the existing pairs are not the only ones dancing. Young members of the group take part in this ritual with even more enthusiasm, in the hope of finding a partner to start their own family with. A new day has begun wrapped in fog at the roost of common cranes. Everything looks the same as the many days they've spent at their wintering site. Or maybe not. Spring is knocking at the door. The time has finally come. An excitement that only they can understand is running through the flocks like an electric current. The groups are taking flight, but their destination is no longer the feeding areas. The cranes are starting their journey back to the far north of Europe. And like them, many other winter birds are leaving their wintering site to head towards their breeding habitats. These cranes have an exhausting journey ahead of them, which for some can exceed 3,000 kilometers. They will take the same route that they used to get here, and will also stop to rest in the same places. Between February and April, their unmistakable V formations and their songs will adorn the European skies as they journey back to their other home. They fly very high, forming the shape of a wedge, so that each bird can take advantage of the airflow created by the flockmate preceding it, which saves them the energy. When the bird in front gets tired, it leaves the position for another to take over in perfect teamwork that allows them to keep going, even in the rain. Gayokanta Lake welcomes them once again. They have completed the first leg and are yet to cover many before reaching their final destination. Cranes revel in the natural wealth of this environment to relax and regain strength, just as they did a few months ago. They're accompanied by those inexperienced little ones who then came here after living their first great adventure. Now they are exuberant young cranes on their way to perpetuate the cycle of life. Rest days at the Gayokanta Lake have come to an end. Cranes have set off to cross the peaks of the Pyrenees. For one last time, they soar through the skies of the Iberian Peninsula that embraced them during the coldest months of the year. When they return, they will bring a new generation of cranes along with them to discover their winter paradise.